In Singapore, sending PDF invoice is no longer enough to stay GST compliant. That's because the IRAS now requires the businesses to use InvoiceNow. And that changes everything about how you send and receive your e-invoices. In this video, I'll quickly break down who's behind this change and why this matters, the rollout timeline so you know exactly when to act, and how this InvoiceNow actually works in plain English. And most importantly, I'll also go over on how businesses can get compliant without the heavy IT work. So by this end of the video, you'll know exactly how to save time and avoid the errors. Let's start with the big question. Who's behind this change? So back in 2019, Infocom Media Development Authority, or commonly known as IMDA, introduced InvoiceNow. You can think of it as Singapore's official e-invoicing network. It runs on an international standard called as the Peppol. Basically, it's like a common language which will allow the different systems to talk to each other. Now, here's the important part. IRAS, that is the Singapore's tax authority, is making it mandatory for every GST-registered businesses to use InvoiceNow ready solutions. So this means that every invoice you issue doesn't just go to the customer but also to the IRAS for tax reporting. From 1st May 2025, IRAS begins their soft launch, meaning any businesses can voluntarily pick up e-invoicing and they should send their invoice through the InvoiceNow portal. Then on the 1st November 2025, if you're a new company that has registered voluntarily for GST, then within the first 6 months, you would have to comply and send your invoices through InvoiceNow. By 1st April 2026, the same rule applies for new voluntary GST registrants regardless of when the company has been set up. After that, the IRAS will extend the requirement to meet more of the GST-registered businesses. They'll be announcing the exact dates after consulting with the industry. And this is exactly where compliance helps. We get you live on InvoiceNow within a week. Then we train your team and ensure that the whole setup is error-free. So you'll be able to avoid the penalties, stress, and unnecessary delays. Instead of sending a PDF by email, you'll now be required to use the InvoiceNow Ready solution, which is basically your accounting or finance software that is set up to send the invoices in a structured digital format. So the smaller businesses can buy it off shelf, while the larger ones can just build it into their ERP. Now here's the key part. The invoices that are sent through the InvoiceNow aren't just random files. They follow a global format called as BIS Billing 3.0. which is an XML standard which ensures that every system speaks the same language. And in Singapore, they have a localized version called as the PINT SG, which is a version of the standard that has been tailored to meet the requirements of Singapore and cross-border use. But your software doesn't send the invoices directly to IRAS. They need to connect with something called as the access points. You can think of them as a secure courier for e-invoices. Your software writes the letter, and the access point converts it to match the requirements of PINT-SG and then validates it. Think of InvoiceNow as a highway which connects your customers and IRAS. And here's the good news. You don't have to build everything by yourself. Providers like Complyance already act as access points. Plus, if you use an IMDA-approved provider, you may even qualify for government support, which grants you up to $30,000 to help cover the upgrade. Alright, now let's zoom in on the actual InvoiceNow network, how it happens and what it is. InvoiceNow is Singapore's national e-invoicing network that is built on an international standard called as Peppol. So think of Peppol as a global rulebook that allows the systems to talk within the same language. Singapore adopted this back in 2019 so that every businesses can send and receive invoices in a structured digital format. We start with corner 1, that is the seller. The seller creates an invoice in their InvoiceNow Ready software. Once prepared, the invoice goes to corner 2, that is the seller's access point. At corner 2, the seller's access point first converts the invoice into Peppol e-invoicing format. It then validates it, makes sure it follows the Peppol rules, and then forwards it through the InvoiceNow network. But here's what's different in Singapore. the seller's access point also sends a copy of the supply data directly to IRAS. At corner 3, the buyer's access point receives the e-invoice. It runs its own checks to confirm everything is valid and secure. Then it forwards the e-invoice to corner 4, that is the buyer. At the same time, the buyer's access point also sends the purchase data to IRAS. So at the corner 4, the buyer receives the e-invoice directly in their accounting or ERP system. Since it's already structured, it can be processed automatically without manual entry or retyping. Finally, at corner 5, which is the IRAS, by receiving both the supply and purchase data from the network, IRAS automatically has the full picture. That means no duplicate filings, no mismatched records, and the tax reporting becomes part of the invoicing process itself. So to keep it simple, every e-invoice goes to the buyer and to the IRAS, making the process secure and automatic. And to make this easier, we have put together a free handout which clearly explains everything you need to know about e-invoicing in Singapore, starting from the timelines to compliance. You can grab it using the link in the description.